Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about something that is very common in narcissistic relationships called reassurance seeking. Reassurance seeking is the act of continuously trying to gather information that has already been given in an attempt to decrease anxiety. There's a difference between seeking information, which is gathering information for the purpose of understanding something or learning something, and seeking reassurance, which is continuously trying to gather information that has already been given in an attempt to decrease anxiety. There's also a difference between reassurance seeking and rumination, or reassurance seeking and having trouble accepting something. In the long term, reassurance seeking creates a vicious cycle because even though it does decrease anxiety in the moment, over the long term, it actually worsens anxiety and increases the need for more reassurance. It also decreases your confidence in your own ability to answer your own questions, and it reinforces that you are unable to tolerate the discomfort of the uncertainty that you're feeling. Narcissists and victims of narcissistic abuse may both engage in variations of this type of behavior, which is related to anxiety. This is a relationship where people don't trust each other and they don't trust themselves. So, anxiety is very, very common for both people. Reassurance seeking is not about trying to be right. It's about trying to decrease or avoid anxiety. If the reassurance is not available or if it's not given, anxiety increases. Anxiety is a common challenge for many non psychopathic narcissists and for victims of abuse as well, and coping mechanisms are often created to deal with it. Reassurance seeking is one of these coping mechanisms. Reassurance seeking can look like seeking self reassurance by checking, counting, examining, cleaning, or mentally examining different scenarios, such as what we see in people who have OCD. Seeking reassurance from other people by asking the same questions or making the same accusations that the person is supposed to defend against or deny over and over again, such as, are you mad at me? Is everything okay? What are the things that you like about me? Even though these questions have already been answered multiple times, they just keep asking them over and over again. Seeking reassurance through through research, such as looking up symptoms to prove that you don't have them, or things will be okay in other ways. For example, if someone is afraid to fly in a plane, they might look up statistics about how infrequently planes crash, even though they already know the answer to this. They have already looked it up a whole bunch of times. It's just that reading it makes them feel better, even though the information is already known to them. Reassurance seeking is common in narcissistic relationships, and as you know, participating in this cycle does not help at all. You can increase your own dependence on reassurance seeking by learning to trust yourself. This is not easy, but it's necessary if you want to learn to manage your anxiety. You can stop participating in the reassurance cycle with someone else who is seeking reassurance from you by refusing to answer the same question over and over again. Because no matter which side this is coming from, whether it's you who are seeking reassurance or someone who is seeking reassurance from you, this is exhausting. And it's also not fair because it's not the other person's responsibility. The narcissist is repeatedly seeking reassurance from you. It's not your responsibility to rescue them from their feelings and having to keep answering these same questions over and over and over again. And once again, participating in this cycle doesn't help because, this person doesn't believe you anyway. It doesn't matter what you say. You cannot control them or stop them from asking you. And this is not to say they're not going to get mad if you refuse to participate, but you can refuse to participate because they already know the answer to this question. And you don't need to answer it again. Now, sometimes people confuse this with having difficulty accepting things. Someone might say, well, is this the reason why I keep going over and over and over what the narcissist did to me in my mind, trying to understand how someone could be so cruel? the primary motivation for reassurance seeking is not to learn or to understand, because the information being sought is already known, or it's already been given, usually multiple times. That is more like a problem with acceptance, not being able to accept that this actually happened and what it means, or someone is still in the fact finding phase of the relationship, where you're just trying to figure out what happened and you really are trying to understand and to learn. But there are many, many maladaptive coping mechanisms in these relationships. Reassurance seeking is one of them. And what we mean by maladaptive coping mechanisms is these are coping mechanisms that either don't address the problem, worsen the problem, or actually create new problems. For example, substance abuse is a maladaptive coping mechanism, avoidance, denial, projection, blame shifting, and shame dumping. Shame dumping is where someone feels shame, so then they try to shame the other person, or they try to say, you are making me feel shamed, or you are shaming me, right? Narcissists do that all the time. Extreme defensiveness or offensiveness, playing the victim or being the hero. Learned helplessness, passive aggression, overt aggression. Of course, this is not a complete list. Most of us have at least some maladaptive coping mechanisms. They come from the experience of being a human being, right? Many of them are not our fault. They're created by conditioning, an environment where healthier coping mechanisms were not modeled or were not taught, cultural normalization of unhealthy behavior, and other things that we really don't have any control over. However, they are our responsibility. Growth comes when we not only recognize these things, but when we realize we have the ability to do something about them. It's time to let go of the idea that changing something about yourself means that you're broken or you need to be ashamed. You don't believe a tree is healthy if it never changes, if it never grows. That is not considered healthy, for something to never change, to never grow, right? One of the biggest reasons people have challenges with changing or even acknowledging their own problematic and unhealthy behavior is this poisonous ego narrative, which is also often a cultural narrative, that we have to be perfect, and if we're not, we need to be ashamed of that, or this is something that's wrong. If you have to change something about yourself, you must have been the problem, because if you're not perfect, then you're to blame for everything. That's, of course, ridiculous. Dealing with narcissists exacerbates this problem. It reinforces this narrative, because narcissists relentlessly shame and attack people for not being perfect. And that is, of course, because they believe that if you're not perfect, you have no value, which is one of the reasons why they have so much toxic shame, which is one of the reasons why they engage in all of these maladaptive coping mechanisms. It's the same for everybody. It's just that they are so extreme, so pathological, so delusional, that it is outside of the normal experience of most people. Part of healing is letting go of this toxic narrative of perfection. It's false. And not only is it false, it's dangerous. Taking accountability for ourselves in all of these ways is the only way that you can heal and mature and grow. Pathologically narcissistic people are actually a great example of that, because this is exactly the reason why they don't heal, why they don't change, why they don't grow, because they can't take accountability for anything. They are the poster children, the visual aid for what happens if you cannot do that, if these coping mechanisms become too problematic to where you can't do anything about them. Luckily for you, you can. And that is the most important thing for all of us to understand, that there is nothing to be ashamed of for not being perfect. So I hope that clears a few things up for you. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.